spring break breaking point.
It was full-on danger. I'm done.
Deja vu all over again. Why the chaos? What's the answer?
Now, will it help? Sure, absolutely, because it limits the locations that people can go and congregate.
The clerk will lock the machine and announce the vote.
Permitless carry, a big step closer.
This is a God-given right, and what we're doing today is we're just upholding that right.
The party line vote, but for one. The Republican who said no is with us today. The birds and the bees and the laws.
This rule basically says that we're sticking to the standards.
The politics of sex education.
They don't listen, they don't care. I didn't expect any different today.
The change is coming.
There were a lot of questions about age appropriate. Well, this clarifies it.
Suddenly condemned and evacuated.
We don't have any violations, so why did you close every single floor?
Why here? Why now? And what's behind the forced exits?
God forbid a fire or other emergency exists in that building and someone perishes. I knew and chose to do nothing about it.
A lot on tap this hour, all live this week in South Florida.
Good morning. I'm Glenna Milberg. A lot going on today, a lot of events going on around South Florida as we come on the air today. None with as much state and national attention as on South Miami Beach. After two fatal shootings on Ocean Drive last weekend, you heard Miami Beach city leaders do what has become a familiar debate about what to do, and we will go there in just a minute. First, though, to Ocean Drive right now, where there was no curfew this weekend, but a significant ramped-up police presence, and Trent Kelly is right there for us. Trent, good morning.
Good morning there, Glenna. While that full weekend curfew that you just mentioned was ultimately voted down by the city commission here, they did end up passing a more limited curfew, applying only to liquor store sales in the entertainment district. That measure, as we all know, now being battled in court. But when it comes to curbing the chaos out here, it seems as though the thing making the biggest difference so far is that surge in FHP troopers as ordered by the governor late last week. A show of force on South Beach. Troopers checking IDs and trunks in an effort to keep the peace. The new DUI checkpoint near 5th and Ocean, operated by the Florida Highway Patrol. At least one man put in handcuffs Friday night as officials attempted to curb any additional spring break chaos. The extra enforcement coming after a deadly weekend in the entertainment district last week. First, a man was shot and killed along Ocean Drive on St. Patrick's Day. One man detained in that case. Then a second person also shot to death more than 24 hours later. Police arresting the alleged gunman just a few blocks away. And ever since that new checkpoint was established on Friday night, no additional shootings have been reported here in the entertainment district. At this point, though, it remains to be seen exactly how long those FHP troopers will be stationed here. State officials saying earlier in the week they are prepared to stay as long as they're needed. Reporting live from South Beach, I'm Trent Kelly. Glenna, back over to you.
Trent, thank you so much. You know, this week in a heated emergency meeting, the split on the Miami Beach Commission was obvious in a 4-3 vote to forego that curfew Trent talked about this weekend. But as he said, they put in a curfew on package stores and liquor sales. That move prompted that lawsuit, and even the police chief said it probably would not make a difference. Those two separate shootings, fatal, hours and blocks apart last week, added another level of horror to the annual anger and frustration of what they call spring break on South Beach. And much of that anger comes from those who see and feel a racial component to the response.
So just think about it. If they block off Ocean Drive from 5th to 12th, and they put all these young people in this drug-infested area with nothing to do. And mind you, I've given them plans after plans after plans of how to organize spring break and Memorial Day weekend. It goes in one ear, out the other.
You could buy anything on Ocean Drive, any day of the week. It doesn't have to be spring break. Prostitution is on Ocean Drive. Drugs are on Ocean Drive. Okay, yes, and they all know it. They want to turn it into Disneyland, but don't blame us. Please don't. Don't blame us, because we don't have nothing to do with it.
This week, one of the commissioners who broached more unusual and provocative ideas like metal detectors and making Ocean Drive a closed and ticketed venue, he is here with us this morning. Ricky Arriola has been a beach commissioner for 8 years and an equal number of spring break season mayhem. Ricky, it is great to see you and thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on this morning, Glenna. Nice to see you.
Thanks. So this is as complicated, really, as it is entrenched because of all the stakeholders involved. You have obviously the spring break, legitimate spring break visitors and tourists, and you have the businesses who rely on them. You have the people who take advantage of them, troublemakers, criminals who come to take advantage of the crowds. You have residents who are tired and sick of that crime. You have investors looking for development opportunities. Have I missed anyone? How complicated is this?
Yeah, that's a pretty thorough list. It is complicated, and it is getting frustrating because it's year after year the same nonsense and tragedies that we face as a community. And we're meeting tomorrow to have a very serious discussion on what further steps we can take to just end this once and for all.
The commission's meeting tomorrow? Who is that? What meeting?
Yeah, we have a commission meeting tomorrow. It was a regularly scheduled commission meeting, but at the top of the agenda will be spring break and actions taken, what's worked and what hasn't worked.
So context is always important. History is repeating itself right now. So it's important to take kind of a look back, and you're a longtime beach guy. This annual issue is probably more than 20 years old and seems to be repeating with the same kind of components every year. Now, though, unlike 20 years ago, there is social media. There are many more guns on the street. So what haven't you tried, and what might be different this time?
I think one of the things we're going to be talking about tomorrow, we talked about it last week at our emergency meeting, is taking the area that we know to typically be problematic. Let's call it Ocean Drive, and it's not necessarily just Ocean Drive, but predominantly Ocean Drive because of the geography. There's a park, there's a beach walk, there's a street. It's iconic. A lot of people like to congregate there. Lots of outdoor cafes. So that tends to be the central hub where people congregate. And so the question will be, what can we do to make that area safer so that we don't have any more of these tragedies?
So what is the reaction to ideas like gating Ocean Drive and making it an actual event? And right now, this weekend, you have kind of an apples to apples comparison right across the bay. Ultra Music Fest is that. Certainly there were arrests and some issues there, but no shootings and no deaths there. It is a ticketed venue. It is a price tag for admittance. There are magnetometers. There are bag checks. Is that a fair comparison?
Personally, I do think it's a fair comparison. I, for one, several years ago in 2019, when the Ultra contract was up with the city of Miami Beach, I was one of the few commissioners to propose actually bringing it to Miami Beach because not only does it bring a lot of revenue, but also it's something that can be done safely. It's a great example of a public park, so not unlike Loomis Park on Miami Beach, that there's an event, Ultra Music Fest, that is a ticketed event. It's gated. There's security procedures, provided by the venue operator, in addition to off-duty and on-duty police. And then you mentioned bag checks, and other security measures such as, wanding guests and that kind of thing to make sure that nobody's carrying in weapons. And then, you have hundreds of thousands of people there all weekend, and very, very few incidents, if any.
I don't know if you were able to hear at the beginning of our segment together, we had a little clip of sound from a couple of people, a business owner, a black business owner on the beach, and Luther Campbell, who is a very powerful voice in this community, a hip hop icon, a football coach now, but a free speech defender. If you weren't able to hear what he said at the beginning, you've heard from him through the years because he is laser focused on trying to find a solution to this. And he essentially is reaming government officials for not listening, to turning a deaf ear to his proposals to embrace spring break and organize it and program for it instead of making it a free-for-all. I wonder if you would react to his comments and his perceptions.
Yeah, well, first of all, someone who is a big fan of Uncle Luke, Luke Campbell, and have been for, I guess, going on 40 years now. I hear him, and I'm sympathetic and empathetic to what he's saying. You know, out of fairness, he hasn't proposed anything to us in a number of years. I would love to take him up on his offer if he wants to propose something for next year. But, you know, a ticketed event, you know, programming, something I've been championing for the 8 years I've been on commission, something sensible that is going to be safe, bring good crowds, would be something I think this commission is open to. We have been programming, so let me just start with that. I mean, right now we've got a major activation going on Miami Beach with a major fitness operator, and you know, 2 weeks ago we had the Food and Wine Festival, we had the winter party, so we are programming. So the question is, you know, can we do something, particularly this third week of March, which has historically been our most troubling week in terms of the crowds, the behavior. And I think that's something we're going to be very seriously looking at tomorrow and in the coming months to do something that is safe, attractive to the spring break crowd, consistent with the Miami Beach brand. And I think we're going to be successful doing that.
I want to pick apart a couple of words that you just used, if I may, respectfully. You talked about programming. You mentioned a couple of programs. You mentioned bringing good crowds. The programming on the beach now, as wonderful as it is, and bringing good crowds, along with the mayor who said he does not want this spring break on the beach. Are you trying to change the crowd of people coming to the beach for spring break?
We're trying to change the behavior, right? So people who bring guns and violence, not welcome on Miami Beach. People who want to come have fun are absolutely welcome to come here anytime they want.
And do you have the stats where you can acknowledge that the troublemakers are not spring break legitimate, I'll use the word legitimate, spring break visitors? There are plenty of visitors who come legitimately on their spring breaks. The troublemakers in the crowd, we've seen arrest reports, are young adults, not spring breakers. They come from around the state, and they come from across the bay. And in particular, last weekend, several of them brought guns. Is there an issue with not spring break at all, but those who would take advantage of it?
Yeah, it seems to me, seems to our police department, that embedded in the actual spring breakers, kids that are here on college on their spring break, embedded in that are troublemakers who come to either prey on them, whether it's to sell drugs, to take advantage of them, to basically embed themselves in what is, you know, a very typically, you know, peaceful, law-abiding crowd, and embed themselves and create chaos and violence. That's what we need to weed out.
Yeah. Ricky, Arriola, we will be watching that meeting with you, and I know everybody is very anxious to see something really good finally come from this on South Beach. So appreciate your time with us this morning. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Glenna.
Next up, permitless gun carry is halfway to the governor's desk right now. A party line vote in the State House, but for one Republican who said no, and she is with us next. Tallahassee now, and a legislative session on jet fuel. Bills are flying through committees. The biggest and most controversial passing along the Republican supermajority party lines. And this week, the governor already has signed some into law. That will likely happen with a bill they call public safety, which you'll know better as permit-free gun carry. It is on the way to the Senate, having passed the full House this week. That too passed along party lines, but for one Republican who voted against it. And that state rep is Vicki Lopez, in her first term representing District 113 from Miami to Coral Gables and Key Biscayne. Vicki, great to have you aboard again.
Thank you so much, Glenna. Great to be with you.
So was this a principled vote, a gutsy vote, or both?
Well, I'm not sure that it's gutsy. I think, you know, it's always easy to do what you think is right for your district. And for District 113, I truly believed, after speaking to so many people in my district, that their perception of, you know, the current law as it is now makes them safer. And when you represent a district that is very dense with many people living in a very close urban area, I think that public safety is always on the minds of everyone. And I truly believe, I mean, I did a lot of research, Glenna. I went back to the original right to carry law in 1987 that was actually supported by the NRA and by the United Sportsmen of Florida. And, you know, it was their intent at that time was to allow people to carry. And, you know, I'm one of those people that has a concealed weapon license and feel very strongly about self-defense. It's one of the reasons why I own a firearm. But I think that the intent in 1987 really holds true today. People actually thought that you could strike the balance between the right to carry as well as the right to ensure that people were safe, right? And so in that law, they actually listed out disqualifying offenses of people that they thought should have a gun, not the least of which is people with domestic violence injunctions, people that have been convicted of felonies, people that have multiple DUIs. I mean, there are certain disqualifying characteristics of what they think is a good candidate for the right to carry. You don't need a license to have a gun in your home or in your car. So that wasn't where they thought that the danger might be. They thought it might be, you know, upon the right to carry, right, to have it on your person. And so, you know, in talking to people in my district, they didn't think that there was a need to change anything. And quite frankly, remember that 10% of the applications, the highest number of applications for a license come from Miami-Dade County. So I had to find that balance and felt strongly that nothing had changed between 1987 when the current law was put into place and today. And what I think has changed is there's far greater people living in District 113, particularly people that have moved from other states during the pandemic and post-pandemic. So, you know, for me, it's what my district wants and needs. And that's what I think is real representation.
That actually is the definition of representation. And you know, worth it to say, you flipped that district red in the last election. You ran as a center-right moderate Republican. You are a Second Amendment supporter. I want to just sort of frame this really interesting debate that we've talked about on this program over this bill. For supporters of this bill, it's about gun rights. And for opponents of the bill, largely it's about gun safety. And what's so interesting is that gun rights and gun safety are pretty much everyone can agree on both. And so there are these series of amendments, to your point, to try to make the safety component a little bit more black and white. And a lot of the Democrats did broach amendments like training requirements and keeping a gun from someone who was convicted of a misdemeanor, violent misdemeanor. Would one of those, none passed, but would one of those or more of those have sort of changed your view and maybe changed your vote?
Possibly. I mean, I'm really concerned about the training. I myself, underwent a 3-day course where, I learned not only what the law was, but I also learned how to protect myself. I mean, it's a huge responsibility to carry a firearm. And I'm painfully aware that I can take someone's life. And I want to make sure that I'm a responsible gun owner. And I think I became much more responsible knowing how to use my firearm and in the circumstances in how I would use that firearm, right? So the fact that, there is money in the bill to help with training is a plus, but it's not mandated. And quite frankly, I don't think people are going to just naturally want to go do their training unless it is mandated. And I know it's a complicated issue, Glenna. I understand both sides of the issue, especially being a supporter of the Second Amendment. But listen, crime is up in my district, unfortunately, both in Brickell and in downtown. And I think that for all of us, the perception of living in an urban area is we can do both. This bill does not in any way, my opposition to the bill did not in any way say that people can't own guns. I mean, I certainly believe in the right to own a gun. I just believe that you should be well trained to use it. And if you have if you're a convicted felon and you have domestic violence injunctions, I just don't see the reason why I wish upon you or anyone else in our district that you would actually carry.
We want to take a quick break, but there's a couple of questions about the politics of this to a political veteran that you are that I want to broach. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 with Vicki Lopez. Back with State Representative Vicki Lopez, Republican of District 113, the lone Republican in the House to vote no on the permitless carry bill that is now headed to the Senate. Vicki, the bill is, the headline of it for everyone is permitless carry, and that's what we've heard the debate about, and that's what we've been talking about for months now. But there is millions of dollars in programming and hardening of schools earmarked for school security. In fact, the bill was renamed public safety because of that. And I wonder if that kind of gave you pause voting against a bill that had that kind of component in it.
It did, Glenna. And I wished it had not been combined. I wish there had been a school safety, public safety bill separate and apart, because certainly I would have voted for that. I've been a real proponent of making our schools safer. I'm concerned, again, in the urban areas, our schools, people are walking to and from school. There's access to our school children. And so it was a difficult choice there because of the combination. I had to vote against something that I would have absolutely been a proponent and a co-sponsor of. So that was difficult, yes.
But you knew it was going to pass, though. Was that sort of... I mean, when you voted no, there's no doubt in your mind that this is going to pass and the governor is going to sign it, right? Is that
I knew that. Yeah, absolutely. I knew it was going to pass. But again, I have a very interesting and diverse district, right? I have 39% of the voters are no party affiliated. And so my sense of the way I have to represent my district is I have to govern, for all the people, and I have to put people over politics. And truly, I'm a person who really loves my district and am willing to listen to everyone and then have to formulate what's best for that district based on their input.
Sure. So I want to ask you sort of, take our viewers like inside and behind the scenes. People know that there's horse trading that goes on, there's conversation, there's whipping of the vote. You're a freshman in Tallahassee, but you are a total veteran of politics in the state political world, a former commissioner in Lee County, a lobbyist of sorts, an advocate, and I wonder if you're concerned that there might be consequences to this vote, i.e. a committee assignment you might have wanted and won't get, or a bill of yours that might be backburnered to teach you a lesson. I feel like I'm going where we know there is to go, and I'm hoping you just kind of give our viewers a behind the scenes of what your concerns are, if any. Or not. I
actually don't have any concerns about that. I am very proud to say that our leadership understands that I think they understand who I am, right? And I think they understand my district. And I was very comfortable having conversations with leadership about this, and never once did anyone make me feel as if not voting along party lines was going to somehow, endanger or threaten anything that I want to do. I mean, I think that they recognize that I have a lot of experience in Tallahassee, that even though I'm a freshman, I'm not a freshman. But I do believe that leadership, and certainly Speaker Renner, has been very supportive of allowing me to give voice to my district, a district that we have flipped and a district that I know better than anyone. And I'm so grateful for that, because it never once was a difficult vote to take in any way. I mean, I wasn't fearful. I wasn't, oh my God, what could possibly happen to me? On the contrary, I felt very good about them listening to me and actually respecting that I would take that kind of vote and be the only no vote on the board.
So on the flip side, maybe the House Speaker knew that one no vote wasn't going to change the outcome, and this was an opportunity for him to showcase you to your district as, in a very, split district, as someone who really does take care of her constituents. How's that for strategy?
Well, that would be brilliant. And I do have a lot of respect for Speaker Renner, and I know him to be a really good listener. And yes, I mean, I'm sure he knew that we would pass this, but he has a lot of respect for the individual members of his chamber. And I, for one, am always the recipient of that, not only from him, but from his leadership team. So I tell you, if this is the way it's going to go, I'm going to be very honored to serve under his leadership and in the House of Representatives, because I am going to continue to be a very independent thinker and a person who is going to represent her district in the best way in which she thinks that that can be done. And so grateful for the opportunity to do so.
And you know, we here are always ready to amplify anybody who is leading our state, who is fair and who is a principled thinker and takes care of constituents. So it's always a pleasure to have you here, Vicki. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Glenna. It was great being with you.
All right, change is coming to sex education, and by default, sex health education, as schools move to do what they think state law requires. Broward County will unveil its changes this week, and we have a preview of that next. Is set to get a first look at how Broward County Public Schools will be changing its sex education and health education curriculum to make sure it fits within the guidelines of new state laws. The Parents' Rights in Education law, the one opponents call Don't Say Gay, prevents curriculum about sex and gender identity from kindergarten through third grade. And this session, there is a bill to expand those guidelines through 8th grade. Alan Zeman is a Broward School Board member with us today for some context and a little bit of a preview. Alan, great to see you.
Oh, Glenna, it's always great to be on this show with a graduate of a Broward County high school. Glad to have you.
Okay, well, I'll take that. So let me just sort of find the context here. The curriculum, the bill that's in this session that expands the parents' rights curriculum to 8th grade is what Broward schools are doing right now in preparation for that?
It is, Glenna. We've got some legislation that passed last year, some that will pass this year, and we always will comply with the law. But what we're finding is that what the legislature has done is just not consistent with the values of South Florida. And so we will create a program. It's essential that we have a great one, and we will comply with the law. We always do. But the issue is, how do we make sure that the sex education that we teach in Broward County is the type of sex education that's best for our children?
So sex education to many people is health education, one and the same, especially as taught in schools. And that means as far back as we were in school, that means about your body and body parts and biology and menstruation and birth control and sexually transmitted diseases. And in the draft of the curriculum that we see, much of that has been removed. Why? Wouldn't that be comporting with the law because it's science?
Well, in many regards, I feel like the 1950s is calling and they want their health or sex education back. This is not a step forward. This is not a step that will allow us to deal with some of the threats that we have today, the online pornography, the sexting that goes back and forth, the sextortion. Those are the realities of things. Gender identification, sexual orientation. These things are either not going to be covered because school districts are cautious about the approach, but they cannot be taught, many of those topics, kindergarten through third grade. So in my mind, and you are going back a long way with me, I've been around for a few decades, Glenna, but the truth of the matter is we have to have sex education that's consistent with the reality of the world today. Our world is hypersexualized and woefully underinformed about sexual health.
So
we have to make sure we turn that around.
Yeah. But let me go back to something that you were saying. So the bill actually talks about sexual identity, gender identity in K-3 right now is not allowed to be a part of the curriculum. But taking that out as per the law, there's really nothing in the bill that talks about health, what I would call sexual health, like menstruation. Let's just take that as there's nothing in the bill that says you can't teach young girls about that and how it happens and why it happens and when it happens, because for many young girls who don't really understand when they see it for the first time, It could be 5th or 6th grade, but that is science and not anything that I've seen that's banned in the bill.
Absolutely. The state standards say that to teach menstruation starting in 6th grade. There are many people who have written to me and talked to me about how that has changed, how young women and young men are maturing earlier than ever. And 6th grade is probably too late for that particular topic. We probably need to back it up into 4th and 5th grade like we've taught it before. But what we've seen with the legislature is that they've created a Florida state standard now for health education. And their rules that came out of the Department of Education have led teachers to be scared to teach health education.
So it's
the
more
risk
of
doing something wrong is you'll lose your license.
So is it to your point, am I understanding you correctly, it's the vagueness of the law that's leading to a chilling effect where teachers choose not to take chances and teach something? Would that be valid?
Absolutely. So there are some topics that you cannot teach from kindergarten or 3rd grade. The challenge is, can we get teachers and can we get a curriculum passed through the Broward County School Board that allows other things, those things to be taught from 4th grade and beyond? And can we have good, strong, comprehensive sex education? I mean, one of the things we know, Glenna, is comprehensive sex education has led students to have less sex, to be more aware of decisions. And in a world where 60% of high school girls, 60% say that they have become sad or hopeless. 1/3 have said they've thought about suicide, and 14% have reported that they've been forced to have sex. We need to make sure that we are providing comprehensive sex education and health education that beats those numbers down.
Dr. Zeman, in the couple of minutes we have left, I want to ask you about the universal school voucher bill, priority bill for the House Speaker, bill number 1, and passed the House and Senate, on its way for a governor's signature. We've talked a lot about it on this program, and I know public school proponents, and as a school board member, I'm guessing you're one of those, really fear the ramifications for public schools. Has the Broward board talked about that at all? What to expect?
The Broward board has, and we're nervous. In fact, me personally, as one of 9 members of the school board, thinks that vouchers may be a bill that has, or a policy that has greater effect than permitless carry, which I think in Florida, permitless carry is scary to me. I mean, I've lived here, I'm born and raised here and lived here for a long time. It scares me to death to have permitless carry. But vouchers, the way that it's been proposed, could take a significant amount of money away from public education. It's really going back to the fundamental belief that Samuel Gompers started with the American Federation of Labor in the late 1800s. We wanted everyone to have access to a good education, and vouchers has a risk of taking away up to 20% of the money from public education without taking away one student. And if that's the way the funding goes through the Senate and gets signed by the governor, it's going to have a devastating effect on public education in Florida.
Isn't it? I mean, I would guess one of the real concerns is you just don't know what the effect would be because you won't know how many families choose to leave public schools.
Absolutely. But Glenna, from a practical standpoint, we have to hire teachers. We have to have schools. We have to have all of the staff that are required to provide a great education for people in a place like Broward County. But the way that vouchers are being done, up to 50,000 students in Broward County who currently go to private schools can just sign up and get $8,000. So this is like a big giveaway program to people who probably don't need the money as much as other people do in a county and in a state where we're 48th out of 50 in terms of paying our teachers. Why can't we take that money and give it to teachers instead of giving it to people that have already chosen to go to private schools? I just don't think it's good policy in Florida.
This is, there is, as always, 2 sides and 2 perspectives and probably more to this debate. I would love to bring you back and have that robust discussion with some of the supporters of this as we see what the effects are. That would be great. And I appreciate your time this morning.
Glenna, it's great to be on your show. And thanks again. Go Patriots.
Thanks. All right, next, the sudden raids, the rush to evacuate. It's happening in Miami to residents and businesses left in the lurch. But why? A lot of questions for a Miami commissioner when we come back.
structure's not unsafe.
What about everybody who's in the building right now?
They're in the process of moving out.
With no warning and no planning, the people and the businesses at this historic Huntington building in downtown Miami were rushed out, evacuated last week, told the building was an unsafe structure. Turns out the building is solid and standing, though is closed for what the fire marshals label as unsafe for what has been explained as some unpermitted construction and materials crowding one of the exit stairwells. Why does this rise to a level of discussion today? Well, because there are questions about this and other sudden inspections, questionable indefinite evacuations, and decisions that leave residents and businesses wondering who the city is protecting. Manolo Reyes is the Miami commissioner who met with and answered to tenants of the building late this week and here to answer some more. Manny Reyes, great to have you on the program.
Well, thank you for having me in, Glenna.
So I want to, of course, so I want to start with, the Miami Fire Department, the firefighters out there last week, they were doing what they know as best life safety practices. That is not in dispute whatsoever. But what we want to focus on is the Huntington building, but level this up to a bigger picture discussion because the tenants there are wondering why all of a sudden were they targeted for an inspection when they hadn't been in so long and the building is actually very workable. Can you answer that for them?
Well, yes. Of course, I spoke with the fire marshal and I asked him why he was there. And the answer is very clear. Whenever you have a business in the city of Miami, you need a CU and you need a BTR. That's a business license that in order to operate. They, according to what the zoning director told me, and I know all of this because as soon as I found out about this problem, well, I called a meeting with all the directors that were involved, the city attorney and the city manager, in order to find out what happened and what is the best way and what measures, what methods they have to use in order and measures to expedite the process and get those businesses back in acting. Back in business again. And what I was told is that there were life safety issues, and they were there because they were checking the BTRs and the CUs since they had not received answer from the businesses that they were notified that they should renew since November their BTRs and the business licenses and the certificate of occupancy. And while they were there, they always come, and whenever there is a BTR or a certificate of occupancy involved, the fire marshal comes and they make an inspection. And during that inspection, they found a lot of violations that they consider, according to their standards, that they are life safety issues.
That is what that is what they told the residents. But here's I just want to level this up a little bit, and we don't have a lot of time together today, but we've covered stories of this very same thing happening to residents of an apartment buildings in Little Havana. And in both cases, investors had been inquiring into buying properties right before the inspections came. And all of a sudden, all of these properties have all kinds of fire code violations and renovations to do, a lot of money to spend. And the people, this isn't me talking, just for the record, the tenants and the businesses are very afraid that they have land that developers want. And the city is really coming in, not on behalf of the developers so much, but to really expedite what might be a clearing and making better of the properties. Does that make sense to you?
Well, those are insinuations that come along, and people that they start making those insinuations that I don't have any proof of that. I don't have any information that they are investors interested in this property or any other property. What it is true that now I will say this after what happened in Surfside. Our inspectors, and not only in the city of Miami, all over the county, and I think probably in the state, they are more careful and in an abundance of of, of caution, they are probably acting too fast, but we don't want another Surfside. We don't want another collapse, a building collapse.
No, of course not. But I mean, that's kind of
what I'm saying, Glenna, is this. What I've been informed and what I have been doing. What I've been doing is I've been trying to work in a system or develop a system that will accelerate the process. To that effect, what I proposed last Friday in a meeting with the business owners in downtown Miami was that Downtown Development Authority and the city of Miami, we will work in partnership, opening an office at street level in Flagler Street, so all the businesses that they have been cited, they could come real fast and get the CUs and the BTRs, as well as those buildings that they need to get permits for repair. Those permits should be accelerated. And I'm going to bring that to the whole city of Miami. As a matter of fact, I have established already that system in two of my parks, on Corgate and West End. Those two parks, they are located on 32nd Avenue and 16th Street and 60th Avenue and 3rd Street. Every second Tuesday and second Thursday, we have personnel and we have officials from the city of Miami that will help every single business, homeowner navigate through the mess of the process of obtaining a permit. We are going to do that in downtown Miami and all over the city, so we have a real speedy process to cure all those violations that have been cited for.
Is this new legislation that you're proposing?
I have been proposing a legislation that will free those businesses that or tenants that they want to establish a business in a building that has a violation, which is not, I repeat, a life-threatening violation like is in this case, because the actual legislation, what it does, it precludes a business to open or continue operating if they have if the building itself has a violation. Now, what my legislation, what it's going to do, you can have if you have a violation and you have been cited, then if it is not a life-threatening violation, those businesses that they are established in that building, they could continue operating, and they will be able to obtain a CU and a BTR while.
Commissioner, I need to stop you because you know how TV goes. We're kind of out of time, but really interesting legislation. You know we're going to be following that, and I really do appreciate you jumping on with us today.
Whatever you want, Glenna.
I like that. Take care. All right.
Take care.
You too, and we'll be right back. Haven't had enough to watch today's interviews or listen to the This Week in South Florida podcast? Just scan this QR code right there with your phone and it takes you right to the This Week in South Florida section of local10.com. And we are online 24/7, and you know you're a big part of this program, and you can easily connect with us on social media. Find, follow, and reach out right there at Glenna WPLG on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And as always, we thank you so much for being here this hour, and remember, keep in touch.